When with new travel rules, make sure you're properly protected in case of illness or injury. This is where I want to go here next. And joining me, personal injury law, personal injury and disability lawyer, Rajiv Haté. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. I never know what the needs are in terms of insurance. I just tend to think that since I'm a customer of CAA, I'm good.
That's a great point, and a lot of people do think that, although nowadays with COVID, and in fact even with what's going on in Ukraine, I think it's always a good idea to call and confirm that if you are traveling, you would have coverage for the purpose of your travel, especially if you're going to one of those regions near the war area. And essentially, my suggestion is call the provider and find out, are there any exclusions or limitations that could affect any coverage that you may receive while you are traveling. I'll give you an example. Most policies often have exclusions where they don't cover things such as acts of war, insurrection, or acts of terrorism. So if you are going to a combat zone, for example, and you are injured as a result of something arising from that, you may not actually have coverage through your travel insurance. So I think it's important to just ensure that you have coverage for that. And similarly with COVID, there often were, before when there were a lot of travel restrictions by the federal government, if you decided to travel in any event, the coverage may not apply. If the federal government is telling you you're not supposed to travel and you do so anyway, insurance company may take that position that you sort of assume the risk and there's no coverage there. Some policies even contain exclusions for things such as communicable diseases. And so whether COVID falls within that, I think is something that still remains to be seen, but there's a risk that may not be covered either. So again, you just want to make sure that, that you would not be excluded from any kind of insurance coverage while you are traveling, if you do, for example, contract COVID or get injured while you're traveling abroad.
All right. In unsettled times, then, Rajiv, if I called the insurance provider and I said, hey, I'm going to travel, I'm going to do this and this, and the person, the chirpy person at the other end goes, oh, yeah, you're covered. Should I say, can you send me an email to that regard just so I've got it in writing?
Always better to do that. I mean, I think it protects you in the long run, and especially because they may try to rely on some sort of exclusion or condition of the policy. They may say, well, we weren't aware of certain circumstances when we told you that. So, yes, I think it's not a bad idea to do so. You can also ask to see a copy of the policy and review it yourself if you're so inclined to do so.
Yeah, like most of us can understand how that's going to get interpreted at the other end.
Yeah, and that's a good point, right? And that's where I think you made a great suggestion of, ask them to send you an email or something in writing to that effect. Often if you are traveling to a certain area, or if you are planning to do certain activities that could be dangerous in nature, you may have to pay some increased premiums for the coverage. But again, I would recommend that you do so. It's better to have the coverage than to not have it or get denied, because those bills can be extremely costly. So, for example, I did some preliminary research, and just in the U.S. alone, our neighboring country, fixing a broken leg could cost $7,500. The average cost of a one-day hospital visit that is not an overnight stay is $2,600, and the average cost of an overnight hospital stay for one night is $11,700. So it could be quite costly if you don't have coverage, and that's why it may be worthwhile to pay those increased premiums if that's, if you are planning to go to an area where there could be some increased risk, or you're doing an activity that could again have some increased risk associated with it.
Well, I'm in a fortunate position in that I not only have CAA, but I also have a pretty good insurance through my employment. Not everybody has that, but maybe if you're thinking of traveling and have any questions, you should talk to HR or somebody in your own company, because you might have some coverage there.
You're right about that. Often, though, employer insurance through employment is usually health and dental, and sometimes there's a disability policy as well. So health and dental will often cover certain expenses, but they also may have exclusions, and they may also not cover incidents arising from when you're traveling. So again, you might just want to clarify that with the health provider. But yes, great point that you may have disability insurance. So if you are, in fact, injured to the point that you're not able to work, that is something that could help to cover some of the income loss. If you've got a disability that prevents you from being able to perform your job, that is typically what short-term and long-term disability benefits are for. And so that could at least provide some backing if you are suffering an income loss due to any sort of injury you sustain while you are traveling abroad.
I'm talking to Rajiv Haté, personal injury law, personal injury and disability lawyer. I've had both sides of this. My wife was injured recently while visiting in the United States and, in fact, had to be taken by ambulance to the hospital. That stuff, as you pointed out, really, really adds up. It adds up in Canada, too. We're just distanced from it because we don't pay out of pocket for it. We pay in our taxes. But it was handled wonderfully by our insurance people. But I've also had cases. It's what led to my question about getting some stuff in writing, Rajiv, because I've had one of those, well, I don't know who told you that.
You're absolutely right. And I always say it's better to err on the side of caution. If you can get the insurance company to confirm something in writing, that's the best thing to do to protect yourself. You could also take it upon yourself to send an email to, if you have a claims person's name or email address, send an email to the effect confirming the details of the conversation and see if they respond to it. And, if they don't respond to it, down the road, you could take the argument, their lack of response is acknowledgement of an agreement in terms of the conversation. They may not agree with that, but I think it's a step you could take to protect yourself.
Somebody's trying to take me to task here with a text message. It reads, you're confusing people with your CAA comments. You're only covered through CAA. If you acquire additional travel insurance, it's not automatic. I'm not trying to confuse people. I think, Rajiv, what both you and I have said is call them. Ask before you go.
Exactly. And I think everyone, from my understanding, I'm not an insurance broker. I don't work for CAA, but my understanding is that there are different policies out there that people purchase. So perhaps you have one that does cover travel. But you're right, exactly. I think the point is that you should call the provider, talk to them, call, email, whatever it may be, communicate with them to confirm that the reason that you're traveling for, the place you're going to, what you expect to do, that if you are injured, if there is any sort of medical treatment that may be required, that you would have coverage for that. And I should say it's not only limited to medical treatment. Sometimes they cover costs for accommodations, such as if you need to stay in a hotel, if you have to quarantine, if you need to, for example, travel back home and you don't have if your flight gets canceled or you're no longer able to travel with the plan that you originally had, and you need help with paying for the cost of that. So there are other things that can be covered as well. And that's where you just want to check what are the exclusions and limitations. Make sure that you would have the coverage in the event of an unfortunate incident that may arise while you're traveling.
All right. Well, you're a personal injury and disability lawyer, so tell me if I'm on the wrong track here. But, I can bring up lots of personal experiences on all of this stuff, Rajiv, because I'm old. And so I've lived through a lot of stuff. And at least I feel that way. My knees do. But I have also found that when an insurance company says to you, oh, well, we're only going to cover to this or we're only going to do this, I don't think you should accept the first thing they tell you. You shouldn't just hang up the phone in frustration. You can fight with them.
Yes, I agree with you on that. And that's something that, people hire us to do on a daily basis, because insurance companies often deny legitimate claims based on language in the policy. But of course, they typically interpret it in their favor as opposed to the favor of the person that they would have to pay out. So I do not disagree with you on that.
Yeah, I did it once on an auto policy. Like, they wrote off my car and they were going to give me a certain amount, but I wouldn't sign off on the deal. And finally, some guy called me on a Saturday afternoon. He was trying to clean up paperwork, and he wanted me off the desk. And I eventually got what I wanted. I don't think that will work every time, but just don't give up. First phone call is what I'm saying.
I couldn't agree with you more. And in fact, even if you get to a point that you're struggling and you just no longer can deal with it, my advice to you is seek legal representation at that point in time. Call a lawyer, call our firm, call another firm, call someone that can help you, give you advice on your specific situation and see if they can help you out with it. Because, often I deal with so many clients who are denied legitimate claims by insurance companies, whether it's for car accidents, whether it's for disability benefits. And unfortunately, some people will just listen to what the insurance company has to say and say, okay, so I have no recourse. But that's not the case. And, that's something that we fight to get people the rights and the benefits that they deserve on a daily basis.
Rajiv Haté, personal injury law, personal injury and disability lawyer. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much for having me. Pleasure speaking with you.